God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be pleasing and acceptable. For God, you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Like I said, I want to spend some time doing many things, and so please forgive me if it doesn't seem coherent to you at the end. But I want to tell you about this passage. I want to tell you, I'm going to move this as well. I was sitting there, I was just in the way. Maybe some of you sitting in the front. I want to tell you a little bit about what the church is doing in Russia. And I want to tell you my own story. Often we don't talk about our own stories and what God's done in our lives. I'm going to share with you how I became a missionary and have been sent out by you and by our church to proclaim Christ to the world. I'll start with my story of how I became a missionary. I'm from north central Ohio. I'm an Ohio State Buckeye, Cleveland Browns fan. I'm sorry. Some of us, it even happens to some of the best of us, I know. This is when I was commissioned as a missionary. My missionary journey starts really as an infant, growing up in the Methodist church in northern Ohio, in which was engaged in our community. Mission was an important part of who that community was and is, and as a child, that was an important part of my own upbringing. They sent me when I was 17 with a group of other Methodists from northern Ohio. We went to St. Petersburg, Russia. And I was talking to some of you earlier at the, what are we calling this time between service?
Food and Fellowship.
Food and Fellowship, which you should sign up to bring yummy food. Thanks for bringing things today. But as I was talking with some of you at Food and Fellowship, you've been to St. Petersburg. Who was I talking to? Anybody? They were all from the first service, that is. They were in St. Petersburg. But St. Petersburg, the imperial capital of Russia. I don't know if you've ever seen photographs of St. Petersburg, but it is hard to describe the majesty and beauty of some of the churches and palaces that are there. I went with this group of people from northern Ohio. We arrived at this orphanage, which we were going to be working at for 3 weeks, and we are in this old rickety bus that's shaking back and forth as we're going down the road, and we enter this complex where 600 children who all had some type of mental disability. Many of them also had physical disabilities. We were there for 3 weeks, and our job was to play with kids for 3 weeks. That's what the church had sent us to do, to bring the love of God to those children by playing with them for 3 weeks. And if we had some time, we could do some repair and things in the building. But our main mission was to play with kids and do crafts with them and bring God's love. I was 17 years old. We arrived in this complex. It's a series of buildings that are gray and crumbling. It fits every stereotype that you have in a Soviet building. We arrived with children there and welcome. And I was overwhelmed. I'm on sensory overload. And we walk into the building, and as soon as we walk into the building, I am greeted with the smell of cooked cabbage, sweat, and human waste. It is a smell that I cannot that will ever leave me. The smell, I can even smell it today. So pungent it was. We were there for a week, and every night we would gather as a group to debrief and talk about what we had seen and experienced that day. And I remember at the end of our first week, playing with these children, many of them who didn't know their parents, many of them who suffered from severe disabilities, some of them who were there to die. I remember sitting with our group that first week and talking and saying to them, I am convinced that this is a place that God has left. This is a place that God has left. Because how can a God that loves humankind allow this pain and suffering in these children? A week later, we were out playing with kids in the middle of the afternoon, and I noticed that there was a child on a pillow, a large pillow, sitting on the bench. His name is Dima. Here to find out, he really wasn't a child. He was 15 years old, but had suffered from fetal alcohol syndrome and was one of the more lucky ones who was able to live to that age. And there he was by himself, so I went over and sat with him. A child who couldn't speak, and couldn't hear. And I thought, what am I going to do here? What am I going to do? I thought, well, touch. So I grabbed his hand and smiled at him, and we sat there. And it was amazing how God, in the midst of such a simple act, could bring transformation in my own life. There, as I was sitting with this teenager and holding his hands and smiling, God came to me and said, I love this boy. I love you. I love the children here in this place in ways that you will never understand. I am here in the midst of all of this and have sent you to bring joy and hope to these children, and for them to witness to you the love and joy that I bring into this world. It was one of those experiences that if you've ever had something happen like that to you in life, that really messes you up. Because it takes everything that you know and turns it upside down. It takes everything that you assumed and changes it. And it helped unsettle me in a very good way to help me be reminded that in my baptism, as in all of our baptism, that God has placed upon each and every one of us a call to mission, and a call to serve Christ and his church. Today, in this passage, we encounter Jesus after he has sent the 12 out, after he's been transfigured on the mountain, after he's, in the previous chapter, in chapter number 9, after he's also been thrown out of a town, he comes and he gathers 70 of his disciples. Now, as I was sharing with the children, we often spend a lot of time talking about the 12 plus 4 or 5 others we hear in the text. And we forget that there were others around Jesus whose names we do not know, but were followers of Jesus Christ, who Christ sent out in mission to the world. He said to them, I know you aren't the selected 12. I know that your names will probably not be written in scriptures and remembered forever. But I'm sending you. I've called you and I'm sending you out to go to every town, to tell them that Christ has come, to tell them that the kingdom of God is near, that God's salvation is at hand, and to bring healing and hope into the world. It's a powerful passage for me because it reminds me and reminds us this day that we are called by God, like those 70, and whose names are not recorded and whose work we do not know, who've been called and sent by God out into this community and to communities far and near to share the word of God with the world. Now that took me to Moscow, where, as I said, I worked with immigrants these last 4 years. Now some of you might ask, immigrants, why did you go to work with immigrants in Russia? Russia is a beautiful country in which I already having moved just 2 weeks ago, miss deeply. It's a country of tremendous culture, of tremendous beauty, both natural and human-made beauty. But like every country, it has its own challenges and problems. And it particularly has challenges with immigrants. In Russian language, there are 2 words for Russian. I don't know if you know this. There is the word Ruski, which means ethnic Russian. And then there are those who are Rossiyski, which means they have Russian passports but aren't ethnic Russian.